Good afternoon, wherever you are around the world. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Luis Figueroa. I'm a forward deployed engineer with the AI field team here at Sema4, and we're excited to walk you through some another Build Your First Agent webinar today. If you have joined us before, just the first initial section might be a little bit of a recap as we just kind of level set with people who might be new to our product. But then we'll jump right into a new pattern and some new capabilities in our product that we want to walk you through. All right. So that said, let's move forward. Okay, a quick recap. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with AI and what AI agents are, but just to recap, the difference between AI or what you might gotten to know as LLMs is that large language models can provide you huge amounts of intelligence, knowledge on demand. By now, most people are super familiar with services like ChatGPT or Claude or Grok and services where you can ask questions, get immediate answers, and collaborate with these AI agents in knowledge exchange. Now, the real potential there is, well, that's extremely helpful, and that's a force multiplier for all of us. The real potential there is to take that intelligence and being able to empower these LLMs to execute work in our enterprise. And that's where we come into building the concept of AI agents. So AI agents are an augmentation of these AI or LLM models. We give them the capability to integrate with enterprise systems and other services so that you can provide the agents instructions and being able to delegate tasks with them. So just to draw an analogy, so if you look at this picture on this slide, here's how we depict an AI agent. In one side, you have business logic, you have data sources, and you have actions and outcomes. I want to say those are probably the three major components of an AI agent. But let's talk about each one. So the business logic is basically that subject matter expertise that you as a business person carry and own in your enterprise. The idea here is that through natural language runbooks, which is basically a text file where you can instruct the agent and tell the agent how to perform its work, you can encapsulate that subject matter expertise and enable these AI agents to learn about your business and how to execute tasks. So there are three main components there. So one is the LLM that powers the agent, as I mentioned, the runbook, and then the knowledge, the business knowledge that you can encapsulate there. Sorry, one second. Okay. Then the second biggest part of AI agents is the ability to have hooks or integration points with other systems. At Sema4, we call that actions. And more recently, we have added support for MCP servers, which are a very similar integration capability that's available in another platform. So actions or MCP servers are out-of-the-box integrations that you can add to an AI agent to give it skills to connect and delegate tasks to other systems. As an example, this could be a Salesforce connector or action that allows your agent to retrieve a sales pipeline or update your forecast, things of that nature, right? So that applies to any kind of APIs, databases, email systems, scheduler, backend, CRM, so you name it. Then the last piece of this is the data sources, which is of course where your enterprise information lives. And one thing that we do different at Sema4 is that instead of creating data silos and pulling data from your data sources and kind of to provide a data set for the agents to work with, we have the ability to tap in real time to those data sources. Of course, assuming that we respecting all the security and data access controls that your enterprise may enforce, and we can give these agents real-time access to those data sources. In that way, you avoid problems with stale data or avoid the data duplication problem, and you don't have to manage multiple copies of data as you grow. And so those are the three main components. And hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea between the difference on AI, LLMs, and AI agents. Now, I talked about runbooks, and this is a key foundational part of our AI agents at Sema4 and one of our biggest differentiators as well. We believe that AI agents should be powered by natural language, not code. And for the large majority of use cases and in our experience with our customers, we are able to solve their business problems by using this approach. Of course, there are edge cases, there are, in some cases, custom integrations that are needed. And for that, we have a very powerful SDK that can help your developers really quickly build those custom integrations whenever those are needed. But for the majority of use cases, you can build your runbooks, define the characteristics of your agent, describe the work that they perform, the responsibilities, and enable them to get to work. So we talked a little bit about dynamic data access, which is that ability of reaching out to your data sources. One important bit of information I wanted to share here is that while LLMs are very smart and know SQL very well, they can oftentimes, so let me take a step back. You can take two approaches to querying data, right? So one is allowing your LLM to build the SQL queries and reach out to your data sources. And that can be great for data exploration use cases. However, as if you come from a data governance background, you might know that there are many data sources throughout the enterprise that might have reference to very similar data types or data concepts, say customer, right? So you may have 10 tables around your data warehouse that have customer data, like which is the right table to query. What business rules do you want to enforce on queries that pull customer data? That sort of thing poses a challenge for LLM because now you're moving from knowing how to write SQL to adhering to your governance practices. So that's where named queries come into place. So we have the ability to define what the queries to be used are for a specific data domain. And so you have both options with Sema4. For data exploration, you can let the LLM kind of help you write SQL queries and execute those while you ask your questions in natural language. But for very controlled processes where you want to adhere to data governance, you can use named queries. And please, as I go, if you have any questions or comments, I see Alexis already said that in the chat window. Please drop your questions in there, and I'm happy to stop and answer any questions. If not, certainly at the end, we can do that as well. Okay, so now the other big piece here is the action gallery that I mentioned on the slide that talks about AI versus agents. So here's an example of our action gallery, and it's a very large catalog of out-of-the-box capabilities. As you can see here, we're showing some Excel actions or the ability to connect to HubSpot, email services, etc. So very, very useful because you don't have to write any code to get access to those services, assuming that you have the proper permissions, right? So that's been our quick recap. So I just wanted to level set a little bit. We certainly have more in-depth information about our platform, and we're happy to share with you some additional resources. When you receive the follow-up to the webinar, you'll get some links to other helpful resources. Now, how does the platform work? We have two main components. One is the development environment. We call that Sema4.ai Studio, which is what you're looking at here. And then we have our hosted cloud where you can deploy your agents. That cloud service lives on AWS, and we have another version or another offering on Snowflake as well. It's important to mention that these environments are not hosted by Sema4, but we do host the automation so that you can deploy those services within your VPC and AWS or your own environment in Snowflake, so that the data is always within your control and within your security perimeters. All right, so today I wanted to cover two main features. So we had a very exciting update recently, and version 1.6 came out of the platform. And there's lots of features there to talk about, but I picked two today. One is a big update to SAI. SAI is our Sema4.ai agent creation assistant, right? So it's our AI that helps you build your agents. And it's a huge leap in terms of its capabilities. I'm going to show you how to use it to get you to build an agent in a matter of minutes. And then the other one is DataFrames, and that's going to be very helpful for analytics use cases. So without further ado, let's jump in. And here in Studio, I'm on the Home tab, and from there you can see that you have a few quick shortcuts that take you to different approaches to build agents. You can use a template. You can build your own if you want to be very specific about and have full control over every step of every aspect of the agent as you build it. And you have SAI, which is what we recommend really, because SAI not only helps you build the agent, but it has a deep knowledge of best practices. So it's going to really guide you towards building a high quality agent. Extremely helpful, especially if this is if you're new to building agents with Sema4. So once I clicked on SAI, so you get this little window and or text box here where all you have to do is tell the agent SAI, what kind of agent do you want to build? So in today's example, we're going to build a sales forecasting agent. And so I have a quick little prompt here, very simple, as you can see. Just help me create an agent that analyzes our sales pipeline and historical data to forecast quarterly revenue. It should calculate weighted pipeline by stage, compare against regional targets, flag deals at risk, and show year-over-year trends. So don't be intimidated if you haven't been in sales. This is just something that the sales teams run through religiously, week by week. You can extrapolate these capabilities that we're going to see here to any kind of use case that deals with processing data, doing calculations, etc. We're just going to use sales as an example today. So the first thing that you'll notice is from that little paragraph, the agent was able to extract your intent, because LLMs are trained on vast amounts of information. They have a very good knowledge of what a general forecasting process looks like. So it's going to make some recommendations. You have identified the key components of the agent, what its scope is, some information about decision criteria, and so forth. Right. It also gives you a quick explanation of why this analysis is a good approach. If the paragraph you provided had severe gaps, it would also tell you like, hey, we could use a little bit more detail on this, and guide you through collecting that information. So at this point, it's asking you if you want to add more details or if the agent looks good enough. But we're going to say, I have some specific things I want to give the agent, so I'm going to add some details. And I have previously collected a set of SQL queries because in our example, the sales historical data lives in a database, and we're going to give the agent those queries so that it can go and retrieve the data. So first thing it does after I tell it that I'm going to add more details, it's just doing some validation on the scope and outcomes, and it's giving you some options. So for example, the forecast by region and product line roll up to company. So that's the granularity that would use if we pick this option. The variance versus quarterly targets by region, and deals at risk are within recent codes and owners. So it would also provide year-over-year trends. So as opposed to that, then you have a little bit more of a more advanced analysis that you can do. And so this will be option B. And of course, you can always type here your specific scenarios. If any of those are not a great match, then you can instruct the agent to follow your specific process and just produce the specific metrics that you're looking for. In this case, we're going to tell it to use some sensible defaults. It's going to give you a good compromise between the basic option and the more advanced calculations. And now the agent's analyzing the data, right? So now in here, so it's asking you, how is it going to estimate the probability of a deal closing within a quarter? And it's giving you two options. Option A is telling you that you can use the deal stage, the opportunity stage. If you're familiar with sales, when you have a new opportunity, if the opportunity is in discovery stage, it's a very early stage, right? So you're talking to your customer, you're trying to find out if you're a good fit to help them solve a problem. probability is going to be very minimal. So it gives you a 3%, a 0.3, sorry, a 30% probability that you would close that deal in the quarter. Now, if you have a verbal commit from the customer, you have a very high probability. So this is pretty standard in sales. And so it's giving you the option to go with that approach, or do something a little more complex where it uses historical data that analyzes your opportunities when they close, their stages, seasonality, and so forth. So we're going to stick to kind of the basic and more standard approach for this. And then we have one more input we're going to provide to the agent, which is the SQL queries I mentioned earlier. So let me grab that text. So as you can see, it's asking for data sources. So I'm just going to say, use the sales forecast queries action package. It's something that I already have added to the environment. And then for pipeline and forecast data, we will provide an Excel file. So that's it. At that point, we have provided all the information that we want to give the agent to build a sales ops copilot, right? So this would be the agent responsible for gathering all the necessary information to produce the weekly forecast. So now it gives you a summary of what it intends to do based on your inputs. And we can tell it, okay, this looks great. Let's go ahead and build it. So just to recap, this is Side 2. It's a greatly enhanced AI assistant to build agents. As you can see, it taps into the knowledge of LLMs of different business processes to assist you and walk you through how to build the agent, how to build the rules, how to build your calculations. So it goes way beyond just building an agent and the capabilities. It goes deep into the business aspect of it. And then the other thing is it's using best practices learned by our interactions with our customers and building the runbook that we talked about earlier, leveraging those best practices. So as it goes through that process, it gives you a quick summary here on the right. It tells you what it's doing. So it's identified an agent name, an agent description, and then it's going to move through these stages, right? So name, description, runbook. It's going to add the actions or MCP servers that might be needed to access different services. Then conversation starters and a conversation guide. These are a set of prompts that guide the end user through interacting with the agent, and then it will deploy the agent. So that's where we are here. Now you see it's adding the actions we requested. We're going to remove Google Sheets because we're only using Excel, but we'll get to that in just a moment. We won't be using any MCP servers for this use case. And now it's building your conversation starter. So if you see here, keep your eyes on the right panel. It's going to give you a list of prompts with different categories. Tends to produce really high quality prompts for the user to interact with the agent. And we'll see that in the demo. See, for example, how to get started, risk analysis. So all these prompts will be available on the next to the chat box for the user to interact with the agent. Now is build the agent. It's done. So it's, before deploying it, it's asking you to validate one last time. One thing I wanted to point out, because we're LLM agnostic, we support all the industry-leading LLMs. Gives you an opportunity here to make a change in there. So right now we're using GPT-5 low reasoning. And so we're going to stick with that. It's got its actions here. So like I said, I'm going to remove Google Sheets because we won't be needing that. We just need Excel actions and queries to reach out to the Postgres database. And we're going to say create the agent. So that's it. So it took us maybe about 5 minutes. I didn't quite keep track of the time it took us, but as you can see, very guided approach to building that agent, as opposed to the manual approach where you would have to had created all that runbook, collect all your business information, collect your metrics, get you with your subject matter experts, build all that information in advance, and then make sure that you follow best practices. So, all right, so we are here. We are now presented with the option to interact with the agent. And now let's talk about the second part of this demo, Part one was Psi and how to build the agent with Psi. Part two is DataFrames. So just hold that thought in there. So I'm going to get the process started by uploading the pipeline Excel file, which is what's going to start the workflow. Now, if I flip to the right here, this is my Excel file that I just uploaded to the agent. As you can see here, you have opportunity IDs, opportunity names, account name, the stage of the opportunity, amount, and so forth, right? So all the typical information that you would see on a forecast file. And so that starts the process. Now, back to DataFrames. What are DataFrames? DataFrames is the equivalent of an in-memory sidecar that rides along with your agent. Why is that useful and important? Well, as you might know, AI LLMs have a memory space referred to as the context. The memory space for LLMs tends to be fairly limited, and it's where is the working space where the LLM temporarily stores all the information needed to do work. So what happens is when you have data and data intensive processes, it's very easy to fill that working space or that memory with data, with logs and tool calls and like all these different data that is generated as the agent runs. And you might end up running out of context, or important instructions from your runbook may end up disappearing from your context due to memory pressure. And so how do we address that? Well, we built this data frame solution. That's also a big differentiator for Sema4. The data frame is, as I said before, in-memory sidecar that does not consume your context, the LLM context. However, it does make the LLM fully available of what data exists within those data frames. And that's very significant because now it's like augmenting that context memory, that working space, with vast amounts of memory that can be available on your environment, right? So how do you know that we are using data frames? Well, as this agent starts extracting data from the Excel file as well as different databases, as you can see here, if we dive into its thought process, here is showing us what it's going through, how it's executing every step of the runbook. As we go through that, we can see here in this little tab, data frames, the different data frames that are being generated. And so now this information is no longer on the Excel file or the database. This information is right there in memory next to the context and fully accessible locally to the agent. A few benefits. Well, first, you don't have to do several round trips to the databases or Excel files or APIs to pull your data into the agent. Typically, that happens every time you ask a question. With every interaction without data frames, you have to reach out to those data sources. You may retrieve the same data many times, right? You might, especially if you're iterating over a data set. So that's problematic. It adds latency. It adds cost. It adds a number of things. The other reason why this is very important is because the LLM now is using SQL to do calculations on data existing on the data frame. So you get mathematical precision as opposed to LLM approximations. So this produces very accurate numbers that are fully auditable and that are reliable every time, right? So there's no opportunity for hallucination. This is not the LLM trying to approximate or estimate the numbers that it's producing. It's SQL queries and mathematical operations. So I'm going to take a pause there. Let me look at the chat window. Can you deploy in Azure? Hi, thank you for that question. So at the moment, we are not in Azure yet, but we're working really hard on a new release and a new deployment option that's going to allow you to basically deploy on any Kubernetes cluster and whichever infrastructure target. So stay tuned because you'll have the ability to deploy on any environment of your choice. For now, we are only on AWS and Snowflake. Great question, though. Thank you. All right. So going back to our example. So the LLM has run through the entire runbook. Let's take a peek at that runbook that we created, or that site created for us, just to recap. So it laid out the objectives, they gave the agent some context, and that involves basically adding some of the business definitions and terms so the agent understands how to interact with the user, or what the user is intending the agent to do as it receives instructions. And then it goes and implements this workflow. This is what happened when we uploaded the Excel file. It started running through this series of steps, and this describes all the data collection process, the different aggregations that should that should take place in order to support the forecast analysis process, how to compute risk, producing aggregations by region, and so forth and so forth. Right. I'm going to scroll down a little bit down here because there's another important aspect of the runbook that Sai helped us with. It produced guardrails. It produced error handling. Right. So how to react in unexpected situations. What do you do if the data sources are not accessible? What happens if you have a division by 0, for example, and they might lead to an error? How to handle those things, and examples of interactions with the agent. So this entire workflow is what happened after we uploaded the Excel file, and it produced these partial results, right? So it's telling us, okay, so it's done a weekly refresh, complete for the current forecast. It walks you through what it did, some of its calculations, right? And assumptions applied, et cetera, et cetera. Now, something that Sai didn't do in this particular case, and maybe I could have asked Sai to do that, was to you always use tables and charts to present the data. So that would make the data a lot easier to understand at a glance versus having to read through a lot of text. That's something that I think I have another deployment of this agent where I did do that, and so we can take a look at that as well. But all right, so now the agent's got all these data frames, and let me show you. Right, so it pulled the data from the database, and then it produced all the necessary aggregates to answer the typical questions on a forecast call. So if you were with a sales leader on a forecast call, these are the type of questions that a sales leader would ask. So for example, list the at-risk deals with trigger reason. So let's do that. So let's ask that question. And what you'll see is now the agent is not reaching out to the database systems, is building SQL queries against these data frames that we have in memory. And that gives it the ability to produce the answers a lot faster, and keeping the accuracy of database level queries. So we'll see here in just a second. It can create additional data frames to hold the results of the SQL queries that it's executing, but this is happening locally. Okay. All right. So here is, so there's a list of opportunities at risk and the reasons why those are at risk. And sorry, let me scroll down. Okay. So what you can see is it's listing all these different opportunities, and it's telling you it's a risk because the close date has been pushed more than 2 times in the last 2 days. So this is a deal that is slipping continuously. So there's a high probability that it will continue to slip beyond the end of the quarter. And just like that, you can inspect each one of these deals. Now, what you can do is you can, for example, say, give me some recommendations to mitigate risk for the top 3 at-risk opportunities. So what I'm showing you here is that you're not limited by the conversation guide. The conversation guide is going to give you, and this is something that your subject matter expert would define, right? So the typical prompts that a user would need to use to produce effectively use the agent. But certainly you can ask your own questions, you can come up with your own scenarios, and the agent will work through those with the data provided. Okay. So let's see, let's scroll up a little bit. Okay. So option, the number 1 opportunity at risk it's restating why it's at risk, and it's giving you a 72-hour action plan. So book a C-level budget confirmation call, send a one-page return of investment summary. Highly effective, right? And so this is stuff that would typically take a lot of research, a lot of meetings, calls, talking to your reps, trying to define or decide like what are the risks and how can we address them and all these things. And here instantaneously we're getting AI powered recommendations. So I know we're almost at time. So maybe I'll take a moment here, stop and see if there are any questions. And because I would love to maybe answer some of them if we have a few 5-10 more minutes. I can certainly stay longer if anybody wants to stay longer. I'll take a pause here. Okay, and while I wait for to see if there are any questions, I'm going to recap. So Sema4 Studio, your desktop environment where you can build your agents, powered by Sci version 2, extremely good assistant to build your agents, not only best practices, but also subject matter expertise across a number of business processes. Then DataFrames, a fantastic addition to our platform to support your data-intensive data processing use cases, local performance, mathematical precision. Great, certainly improvements to our product. That's what we wanted to show you today. Let's see, I'm not seeing many questions there. I think we kind of cover this one. All right. So let me stop sharing here for a second. Okay. All right. So that said, okay, I don't see any questions right now other than some comments. I appreciate that. Yeah, you're welcome for the demo. Want to thank you all for joining us again in this December technical webinar. Definitely look forward to showing you more stuff on the coming months and week. And if because we're at the end of the year, happy holidays for everybody. And thank you again for joining us. Thank you.